Okay, everybody, nice to have you with us again. Richie Pryor. I'm on the beautiful island of Mallorca, and I'm really lucky actually today because I've managed to come out to the middle part of the island. I'm in a place called Richie, but more importantly, I'm at a place called Palma Pictures, and I'm really glad to welcome the CEO of Palma Pictures, Mr. Mike Day. Mike.
Thank you, Richie. Nice to see you again.
Really, yes, it is. Can I just say that Mike, actually, if you know me, you know that I've obviously been in radio for quite a long time. Mike was the guy I came to for a little bit of advice about radio many moons ago, because why did I come to you for advice?
It was many moons ago, wasn't
it? It was a long time ago.
Was it to do my old man?
It was to do with your dad, yeah.
My old man and his.
Tell us about your dad, because I think it's a really interesting story.
Yeah, so my old man was a radio man, Aiden Day, and I grew up, in the 70s. I was born in 72, shows my age, and he was at the time the program controller of Capital Radio,
which I used to listen to, of course,
and
back in the day.
And I loved it. So I kind of grew up surrounded by music, and I remember, I didn't have much of a clue what a job was as a kind of 7, 8 year old, and I used to go to my dad's work and kind of walk into Euston Tower, and there used to be all these kind of kind of slightly kind of feral, crazed DJs spinning discs and having a riot, and my dad was trying to kind of corral and look after them, and I thought this seems like a great job to have. And that for me was kind of was industry, and so yeah, I loved that, and kind of he was an Irishman. He liked to tell a story, and he always used to say to me that radio was theatre of the mind, which I believe was an Orson Welles quote. So I kind of grew up with that in the background, and then subsequently my stepfather was a film producer, and so yeah, I didn't seem to have much choice.
So you were pretty much born into the entertainment world, then?
I was a little bit, yeah. My other uncle was a priest, and I
really?
I didn't go that way.
So originally from where?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, my dad grew up in Dublin and then came over to UK. I grew up just south of London.
Okay, and how long have you been here in Mallorca now?
I've been living here since 2003.
Okay.
Would you believe 17 years? I first came here 1998 to make a film, and then kind of met the island, met Palma Pictures, that was started by a Swedish chap called Ulla, and one thing led to another, and I kind of got lured in and never left.
So before you got here then, so you already sort of dabbled in the film market before you got here?
Yeah, I was in
London, was this?
Yeah, I was an 18-year-old coffee boy.
Okay.
Runner.
Runner, yeah.
So dashing around Soho buying silk cut and cappuccinos for my bosses. And it was great actually, because when I turned up for some work experience when I was an 18-year-old, and just at the time, the company that I started working for had secured a contract with MTV Europe when they launched in the UK and Europe, up in Camden in Hawley Crescent, and for me it was amazing because I love film and I love filmmaking and I love music, and kind of came from that family stock, and it's the fusion of the two. And so, if this was the era of the Chili Peppers and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and that kind of Seattle sound, and people like Seal and things like that, and so Guns N' Roses and stuff. And so if one of those bands was touring the UK, they would come into town and they'd be staying at some swanky hotel like the Dorchester or something like that. And so I was skivvy box carrier, part of an ENG crew, electronic news gathering. So I used to have a camera person and a sound recordist, and they'd be on a Beta SP, a tape camera, and then a video jockey and a kind of presenter, and then me, driver, general dog's body, carrying lots of heavy silver boxes up kind of possible corridors. And so we'd go and set up an interview in a green room at the Dorchester, and in would walk Slash or Lou Reed or whoever it would be, and I'd sit quietly in the corner and look after the lights, and an interview would take place, and then we'd wrap it all up and then go to the gig. And so Brixton Academy or Wembley Stadium or Arena or the Borderline or these kind of places, and then film the gig. So it's quite a nocturnal affair. Ended up getting back late at night. Often I'd have to kip on the office sofa because there'd be no trains running, and then it would start again the next day. So I had a ball for a couple of years, and then kind of I was a camera assistant. I became a sound recordist doing the same thing, and then I decided that I was perhaps more interested in actually production rather than the tech aspect of it. I didn't think I'd make a brilliant director of photography or anything like that. You know, my folks, my dad and my stepdad were kind of producers, and that kind of, you know, just kind of I felt a natural kind of leaning towards that side of things, and so kind of, you know, embarked on that path really.
So your sort of move from where you were in London to Mallorca, how did that come about? What was the reason to come here?
Yeah, so I was called. I remember I was called one. You know, it was kind of rainy day in November in the UK. I think it was '97. From a producer who I knew, who I've worked with before, and he said, "Oh, Mike, I've got a, how do you frame it to me? I've got a contemporary love story that I'd like to film in Mallorca in the spring." And it was on a budget. It was a TV movie, and he said, "You could be, I want you to be the production manager, set it up, and then I want you to be what they call the second assistant director during the actual shoot, and then be the post production supervisor." And so for me, it was quite a nice gig because I was kind of young freelance, still finding my way in the market, and it was a 7 month gig, and I got to go to Mallorca, and I said, "Oh, great!" I said, "You've got a script," and this is kind of before email. I used to get the brown paper bag in the post, and he said, "No, it's just being written, and so I'll send you one when it's ready." And so about 3 weeks later, I kind of wandered downstairs, and there was a A4 envelope on the doormat, and I thought it must be the script. I ripped it open, and what was the title? The People's Princess. And I was like, that kind of sounds like a title I know, and I kind of opened the page, and Dodi Al Fayed was on page one. I thought, contemporary love story, is it? So this is how he framed it.
Right. Gotcha.
And so it was a story about Lady Dinah, and we filmed the whole thing here, which was extraordinary, and it just showed kind of the versatility of Mallorca. So I remember we had kind of, I think it was Angolan minefields up in Soyer. We had Karachi train station in Soyer train station with the old wooden train. We had Greece. We built Kensington Palace in a warehouse in Fornaluch.
Really?
It wasn't soundproof though, so you could hear the kind of the chickens squawking from the next farm. We had a great time, and we were dashing around the island. We were filming at sea, and we were filming all these beautiful kind of locations, and it was a very dynamic show, in terms of lots of moves and lots of things happening. So I got to know Mallorca really quickly in a very short space of time, and really kind of fell in love with the islands. And then at the end of the project, Ula, who had started Palma Pictures, he was a kind of quiet guy, and I hadn't spent much time with him. He was kind of behind the scenes, not involved in the production, but kind of, Palma Pictures was servicing it, much smaller operation then. We were based out of a kind of first floor office in La Lonja with a few bits of equipment stored at a warehouse, kind of locally. And he came and asked me if I wanted to kind of do some freelance work with him. Oh, I said, sure, great. And he was involved mostly in commercials at the time, from Scandinavia, Swedish guy. And I was working on kind of movies and TV shows, and typically I'd be working on a project in the UK for 6 months or something like that, and I'd never finish on a Friday and start on a Monday. There'd always be a gap while I was waiting for the next gig, or scripts being written or what have you. So the idea of coming down to Mallorca and filming a Swedish kind of crisp commercial seemed quite appealing. Mm-hmm. And so I did that. So I said, next time I'm free, I'll give you a call. And I gave him a call, and he said, come down. And I did some stuff for Norwegian clients, and Danish and Swedish or Scandinavian stuff, and that went quite well. And after about 6 months or so, he asked me if I wanted to start an office in London as his producer based in London. And originally I said no, just because I was a footloose and fancy free kind of 25-year-old or whatever I was at the time, and I didn't want to be beholden much as I enjoyed coming to Mallorca. And he kind of twisted my arm over a couple of months, and I did say to him that I don't know anyone in advertising at all. I know kind of 2 people, so I'm the wrong guy, I'm the wrong casting. And I remember he just gave me this big kind of directory called the Shots Directory, and he gave me this big book, said, well, everyone's listed in there, you kind of call them up. What's the worst that can happen? So I'd call it, hi, I'm Mike from Mallorca, can I speak to so-and-so executive producer? And some of them would hang up on me, and some of them would let me through, and I'd kind of get past the receptionist, and then I'd go in and chat with them about Mallorca, and I didn't know anything about sales, but I'd only ever been a filmmaker, so I could talk about the logistics of filmmaking. And then it started to go quite well, and people started to call up, and so I got a script to shoot a Audi commercial or Adidas commercial, whatever it might be, and I was kind of the intermediary between a London production company and Palma Pictures, the Spanish production service company, I would produce it for them, working to a London producer. And I'd kind of come down here and sort it all out and arrange everything, and a great local team, and kind of would shoot the job, and I'd do all the numbers and wrap it all up and then go back to London. So lots of commute. I did that for a few years, and it went well. And then Ula asked me if I wanted to come down here to live, and my wife and my daughter was one at the time. I've got 2 kids now. To relocate here. He asked me at 2002, and I came to live here 2003. I remember my first day was April Fool's Day.
Okay.
April the 1st, 2003. I was officially here, my feet under the desk.
And so that went so well that you basically bought the company in the end.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So I kind of turned up, and I was the executive producer. So instead of just looking after the UK, I became kind of responsible for the world. Let's say, not over egging it, but we had clients coming in from different countries, and so I'd look after all of that production stuff. And I did that for a few months, and then he asked me to become the managing director later that year. But then soon after I became managing director, Ula mentioned that he wanted to sell the company, and perhaps I was interested in buying it. By then we had these big studios and stuff, and I said, with all due respect to you, you know how much I'm being paid because you're my boss. I said, I don't think the maths works out really. And he said, why don't you do a management buyout? And I said, I don't even really know what that is, and he said, well, we go look for finance and you buy the company with kind of financial backing. And I did say to him at the time, I said, look, I'm your managing director. I've got a 24/7 job, and I said, I don't know about this. I don't have any contacts in this field. At the very least, it'll be a significant distraction. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask to catalyse what you want. And he said, all right, well, why don't you? He said, would you like to become a partner in the business? I said, yes, I like the business. And he asked me if he would go and scout around and I could do a bit myself, then we could just see what happened. So I said, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And then we started that process, and then there was a kind of some years went by, and various kind of folks kind of came in the door and kind of went out the door, and of course it was slightly difficult because he was a great guy, but to a certain extent he was the seller and I was the buyer, but he was still my boss. So you'd have some folks who'd come in and I won't name any names, but I'd spend a couple of days with them, and at the end of it I'd be thinking, oh my God, I can't imagine anything worse than collaborating with these people for the next 10 years. And Ula would be, what do you think? They're great, aren't they? And I'd be like, not too sure about that. Anyway, so we muddled through that, and then finally came across, who actually, funnily enough, I knew one of the chaps, some Swedish kind of venture capital guys, who came in and we kind of backed us to put a management buyout together, and that was in 2007. Perfect timing, of course, just because my wife was questioning me because I personally had to raise some money to buy into shares and stuff, and my wife was saying, sure, this is a good idea. She's doing the due diligence on my business decisions, as she said, as she should have done. And I was like, yeah, great, the company's flying. It's just all good news. And then, of course, unfolds the global financial meltdown. Just a few months later. So anyway, but we pulled through that. So
let's move this on now, because obviously since 2007, I mean, the company today is. I mean, I've just walked in and seen how. I know how successful you've been over the last few years. I've obviously done a little bit of research into what you guys have done, and there is people will recognise things like, well, I didn't even know until I actually but The Crown that you've been involved in, Mallorca Files, on the complete opposite scale, Love Island, The Night Manager, Mad Dogs. These are names that people know about. But they might not know that Palma Pictures had something to do with them.
Sure.
I think out of all those, probably, and I wouldn't know, would be The Crown, which my wife absolutely loves. But we've had a conversation before about how you got, and I'm thinking, how did Palma Pictures get involved in The Crown?
Right.
And it's a really interesting story. So you can just sort of tell us how you got involved in that and what you had to do to do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Left Bank Pictures are arguably one of the best, if not the best, UK kind of production company. They belong to Sony Pictures now. We started collaborating with them, 2010, 2011, when they approached us for a show called Mad Dogs, that was all set in...
Which was great, by the way.
Which was great fun.
Yeah.
And was all set in Mallorca, funnily enough. And so, you know, at the time we were kind of, you know, had a history and a backdrop of advertising work, but occasionally would work on the odd drama here or there. And I came from a drama background, so that was kind of, you know, I was always very passionate about the form. We were approached by Left Bank and with this script called Mad Dogs. We read the script and we ended up shooting season 1 here, and then they came back for a second season, and it went really well, and we became firm friends with Andy and Marigot and Suzanne, the kind of the executives at Left Bank Pictures, because you either become firm friends or hopefully not enemies when you're kind of thrust together on a production.
It helps you get along, right?
Yeah, it helps you get along. You're kind of in the melting pot for months together, and they've been extremely loyal to us ever since, and so, you know, they're an incredibly successful company. And so when they're developing scripts and they're thinking, where should we shoot this? Spain is often in their thinking, because Spain is, you know, obviously we have our headquarters here in Mallorca, and we have an office in Barcelona, an office in Madrid, but we shoot anything with a Spanish backdrop. So we'll shoot all over the country and the Canary Islands as well. And so we'll get a script through from Left Bank when they're at the development stage. So we have X project, you know, we're thinking about filming next year or later this year, whatever it might be. And we need you to find us Greece, America, Australia and Iraq, for example. And so we'll read the scripts, obviously, and then we'll kind of break out what kind of locations they need and give it to our visual team here. And we've got a tremendous visual team here, led by a brilliant man called Pablo, who will then read everything and think, well, maybe you could find, you know, Athens in the 70s in the outskirts of Seville, or maybe you could find, you know, Afghanistan down in the deserts of Almeria, or maybe you could find, you know, Mystique in Sotogrande, or etc., etc. And so we'll break it out, and then we'll kind of pitch back to them a big visual deck, which often numbers some hundreds and hundreds of slides, saying, our imagining for Australia is this, our imagining for Venice is that. And so we'll pitch it back to them, and their creatives will have a look at it and think, actually, yeah, you're on the mark. Because obviously with these TV shows, you know, even a show the scale and the kind of the size of the budget like The Crown, you know, it's a global show in terms of that they take in lots of global locations, and they just couldn't physically, logistically bounce to every single scripted location. So you try and plant a flag in a destination that works, where you can double lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where Spain is brilliant, because it's just so versatile, you know, and probably 90% of the scripts that we see want Spain as another destination. Unlike, it's refreshing. You mentioned the Mallorca files. It's refreshing to be contacted by Clerkenwell Films a few years back, because it actually had Mallorca in the title, so there was no pretending needed to be done.
Sure.
So that was kind of manna from heaven for us. But for the most part, it's doubling locations. And so we were approached by Left Bank with The Crown season 3. We shot a chunk of stuff for them down in Andalusia, which was great. And then we've also done a bunch of stuff on The Crown season 4. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about the locations because it's not dropped on Netflix yet.
Oh right, okay. My wife loves it.
Comes out in November.
Right.
And yeah, so we deal with them on kind of lots of. So we've got a kind of a busy deck of lots of different projects we're working on for Left Bank, and of course nowadays with the subscription video on demand kind of, you know, propelling everything forward. You know, the Amazons and the Netflixes and the HBOs and Disney,
and more so now with lockdown and everything else, people are. It's the sort of probably the one thing that everybody's gone to, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the lockdown itself.
Yeah.
And how has the lockdown affected you guys? Is it? I mean, obviously everything from a filming point of view and filming films and stuff has obviously had to be drawn back. I take it. Is it been hard?
Yeah, it's been pretty hard. So we've had a clutch of great years, and actually, yeah, I'm an optimistic character. We kind of walked into 2020 thinking this might be the best ever yet. and we were kind of going like the clappers, both, because we our job is telling visual stories for folks, and so we work across media. So we work across print campaigns and television campaigns. We work on entertainment formats like Love Island, like you mentioned, and Below Decks and things like that, and drama and TV drama and feature films. So anything with a visual storytelling element, and we had a kind of broad clutch of great shows that were returning. So Mallorca Files was back for another season. Love Island UK was back. Love Island Germany was back. We were in the midst of shooting The Crown, season 4. We had a whole other bunch of shows that were about to kind of move into pre-production and shoot. So our year was really shaping up to be a belter, as they would say. And then suddenly the rug got pulled for us as for so many other poor folks in March. And I remember we had a kind of Black Monday. Everything just got cancelled. It was falling like ninepins. Just every phone call was a bad phone call. And everything kind of just froze and cancelled or postponed, and we went into lockdown just like everyone else. And then for some time there was just radio silence. I think the whole world was reeling, wasn't it? And then started to kind of see a bit of a low ebb of board flow, as we call it, with advertising work. And that started to come through, and then we started to shoot again in July. So it was kind of April, May, June was just very quiet. And we got some projects through in July and in August, and we got some stuff coming through again now. So
started to pick up again.
Started to pick up again on the advertising front. Although it is challenging because, of course, there's all of the the obviously required and sensible health and safety protocols that we have to put in place. And our first responsibility is obviously marshalling an extremely safe kind of working environment for our team and our kind of client stakeholders. That's the most important. And then it's navigating the various challenges, what you can do, what you can't do, and obviously things change. Things change regularly, and because we tend to work with a very few national clients, Spanish clients, because they can tend to do kind of things themselves, and so the vast majority of our work is international, and the German-Spain corridor or the US-Spain corridor, the UK-Spain corridor, everything's shifting and changing all of the time. So you have to kind of work hard to produce your way through these different campaigns. But we're navigating that, and on a positive note, the film and TV inquiries that we've been having. I mean, first of all, creatively fantastic projects, and also there's a volume building for later. I mean, we're looking at a significant kind of number of things for 2021. Although in truth, most of our folks have yet to say. They're saying, we're shooting spring. They've yet to say we'll start on April the 14th, right? Kind of thing. So because things are so kind of flexible and slightly volatile at the moment, so it's a bit difficult to kind of put a pin in the calendar as to when exactly we're going to start. And a lot of the shows that we work on are multi-country shows, in that they might film a chunk of work in the UK at studios, for example, and then come to Spain, or they might film in the US and then come to Spain. So most of the shows aren't entirely set here. Love Island obviously was set here. Unfortunately, the UK version, which we've been working on for 6 years now, they cancelled coming to Mallorca this year, understandably, and relocated and shot in the UK. And then Love Island Germany, they cancelled, and then they looked in Germany, didn't kind of work out, and then they kind of rebooted and came back, and so we shot that project and wrapped recently in September, and that was great actually, because also it was a kind of a proof of concept. We have been working on advertising work where you have kind of 40, 50, 60 people working in proximity, and obviously that we had to manage that safely. On Love Island Germany, 358 people, and so the kind of the weight of responsibility obviously increased, but we've got a tremendous team here, led by our HR director Debbie, who's been kind of instrumental in putting together kind of the protocols that we need to adhere to, and we managed to move through that safely, so that was a relief. But obviously with Netflix and Apple, the US studios, the broadcasters globally, they've had to stop everything and down tools this year, and so inevitably there's a huge backlog of production that needs to go again. So as soon as the world has kind of, let's say, righted and balanced itself, I think that there'll be a bit of a deluge, which is great.
One thing that you guys do that I think is really, really important. Obviously, you're based here. You do a lot of things here, but for instance, Love Island Germany or Love Island UK, or even The Night Manager that was filmed here, the Mallorca Files. It puts the island into the living room of everybody, whether or not you know it's in Mallorca or not. I mean, most people do know Love Island's in Mallorca, but and how beautiful the island is, because you're not filming in Magaluf or wherever. You're filming either on the east coast or the west coast or wherever. And I think the other week, or probably the other month actually, I was in a restaurant in Daya that I'd never ever been to before. It was absolutely gorgeous. The name's gone straight out of my head now I've mentioned it, but it was apparently filmed as a shooting scene in The Night Manager.
The Night Manager, that's right, yeah.
And when I put the picture up of us as a family sat there, and everybody that said, "Oh, isn't that the restaurant that they filmed that shooting scene in The Night Manager?"
No, it's true. I mean, I used to go there. A good buddy of mine lived on Puerto del Sol when I first came here. Started coming here 20 years ago. We used to just be able to pop in there for paella. No booking required. And now,
blimey, you can't get in for love and money.
You can't do that now. Yeah.
No,
yeah.
It's amazing, and that's what But I think what you guys are doing is positive. It's really, really positive that you're sort of showcasing the island, because right now this island needs showcasing, because obviously we have a tourism. 85% more or less of our GDP is tourism, and we need to get it back for 2021. It's really, really important. I'm involved in the tourist industry. I know that, but I think it's for what you do and how you do it, it's fantastic. I mean, I'm even looking at it from the other side, where sort of commercial side. I mean, there's so many commercials that you guys have done that all of a sudden I've sort of. I was looking last night on your website and seeing. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? You don't know, because
you don't,
sometimes you haven't realised that. We were talking earlier about Vodafone, for instance. That was up in Poyenza, I think you said. Yeah. Stella Artois has been another one. I mean, there's just so many. Yeah. I mean, is that because it's such a good a place to do this, or? Yeah,
it's brilliant. I mean, Mallorca's a brilliant place to operate as a production service company. Yeah, it's a beautiful island. It's relatively small, so you can kind of move from one corner to the next. If you can film in the mountains in the morning and the beach in the afternoon. So locations are kind of proximate to one another. Weather's great, easy to get to, good airports. So you can kind of come down here from Berlin or Stockholm or London or etc. really easily. Internationally, you can get in here from the States easily, so you can kind of come into Frankfurt and down, or Madrid and across, or Heathrow and down. And so it's easy to get to, and the local folks and the local government's incredibly supportive.
They are.
Yeah, that's incredibly supportive of filmmaking. And to your point, Richie, it's very close to tourism. What we do is it's a light industry. So we turn up somewhere. We take pictures ostensibly, and then we wrap them. We're gone. We leave footprints behind. That's it. So it's not. We're not kind of damaging the environment. We're very focused on sustainability as a company as well. And have environmental credentials. And so I think it Mallorca is a great place to make films. As is Spain generally.
One thing I found fascinating that I didn't know until we had a brief conversation before we started this was you finding locations for people that are looking for something specific, but obviously not in the area that they want it in. If that makes sense. Yeah. So I need I don't know. Seville in the 1940s, or something. No, sorry, not Seville. Athens in the 1940s. But you've got to try and find it in Spain for me. You've got this guy Pablo, I think you said about earlier on, and so you are basically the go-to people that people will come to, looking for a film set, or not a film set, but a backdrop or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, most of the scripts want to double Spain as somewhere else. A few shows we shot recently, were Spanish in kind of in story, in narrative. So we shot White Lines for Left Bank again and Netflix. That was set in Ibiza. We filmed in Ibiza and funnily enough in Madrid and in Mallorca, briefly in Almeria, scripted Almeria. The Mallorca Files obviously is Mallorca. We just shot a show for the BBC called Us, which was a great show, and actually it's a kind of travelogue. So they move around. This family moves around. Kind of, Tom Hollander is the dad, and they went to Barcelona, scripted for Barcelona, so that was easy. And then we did a bit of doubling for Venice in Vic, just to the north. But for the most part, probably the majority is can you find me somewhere else?
The Inbetweeners was you as well, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah. And that was
February?
Magaluf. That was Magaluf. That was February. Yeah, unfortunately, poor production. They didn't have a lucky run of the weather, and they wanted to come in February to Magaluf because, of course, it's a lot emptier. So actually, you could make a film there. You could control it rather than the hustle bustle of the midsummer. Also, I think they had a release date, theatrically had a release date. But that was as if it were, I think Malia in Crete, I think was where it was.
It was one of the Greek Isles, or Ionak or something.
Something like that, where it was set. But yeah, that was great fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That was great fun.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, you say now things are coming back. Film industry will return stronger, hopefully. I mean, because right now people love going to the cinema. I'm one of these guys.
Yeah.
If I watch a film, I can watch it on TV. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
But some films, for instance, when James Bond comes out eventually,
yeah,
in April next year, I think it is now, and you're going to watch it on the big screen. You're not going to watch it at home. Although they have mentioned that it could come out on Netflix or Amazon or something because they can't delay it too much.
I think they're probably hedging their bets, aren't they? I think it is a theatrical piece.
Was that a push towards the government to say, come on?
Yeah. No, I think it is a theatrical piece, those kind of things. But yeah, I think that obviously television is having a golden age at the moment, and there's a lot more content being made. This year's been a bit of a pause, but I think it will come back stronger next year. Once we're able to kind of operate, safely and film what we need to film. But also, I think that filmmakers, film crews, they're very adaptable, innovative characters. And obviously, I'm slightly biased, but just in normal times, moving, doubling for the 1920s on location somewhere with everyone in period costume and 150 people in a moving circus, shifting locations a few times a day is a logistical challenge in itself. And so I think people, filmmakers, are very adaptable at rising to challenges, and are doing so now. There are movies being shot all over the world at the moment. I think most of the movies have started in studio environment because they are easier to control. When you have a big sound stage and you can have your COVID testing corners and you can have entry and egress, and it's very structured. You can disinfect and everything's kind of very contained and controllable. That's an easier ask and task, I would say, than having a roving circus of some hundreds of people shifting, 2 locations a day. It's not impossible, but it's just more challenging.
So we can expect to hopefully see Love Island again next year?
Absolutely, yeah. No, they're keen to come back kind of, let's say bigger and better, they said at ITV for next year. And we've got a great relationship with the broadcaster and been working with them over a number of years, and so we obviously we're biased, but we view Mallorca firmly as the home of Love Island rather than I forget where it is, so some castle in the UK.
Yeah, and also they filmed one in South Africa as well, didn't they? A winter one in South Africa. And I don't think it worked as well as the one here. And you're right, yeah, it's been going for that long. And I think the last series it peaked at about 5 million, which to get Mallorca into 5 million homes
it's an amazing franchise. Yeah. And as you say, that it really showcases the island in a beautiful light as the rest of the dramas. Because there's lots of kind of corners. You picked up that restaurant, The Night Manager.
Yeah.
There's lots of corners where it's been kind of undiscovered or not filmed.
Yeah.
So I think film industry and tourism kind of go hand in hand, really.
Mike, fascinating as always. I thought it would be, and I'm glad I've caught you because I know you're really busy. You're a busy man, and I really appreciate you giving up your time.
Pleasure.
It's Palma Pictures. Mike is the CEO. Big thanks for giving up your time, and hopefully we'll see each other soon.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cheers, Mike.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.